But I'm really keen, so I'll just ask you a quick question, then we'll throw it out so there's many. But what I would ask is, as we ask questions, if you could just ask one question so we can get around as many people as possible. I'm sure you've all got lots, but as Simon said, I'm sure we can follow that up afterwards. So just really from my question, we spoke about it a little bit earlier, in terms of we work a lot with students and funding and sort of starting, and do you bootstrap? How much do you need? There's a big drive of external investment. What would your advice be to approaching investors, and when is the right sort of time to do that, do you think?
I think funding is probably, if it's not the hardest thing to do, it's got to be in the top three pretty much for every entrepreneur. The Bulldog story was, we managed to raise about £1 million, which sort of looking back was kind of nuts because we were pre-launch. So that's the first thing. So I think we got really lucky, and we just managed to do that before the global financial crisis in 2008, which I think would have timing was sort of on our side then. So some of the advice we took from sort of skilled investors in the space was, things will take twice as long as you imagine and cost twice as much. So, and this is probably very personal to me and won't be right in all types of businesses or all sort of situations, but at the beginning I found we were selling a dream about this hard category and about a brand that could come in and disrupt it. And I think we made a good impression on a few investors, and we sort of tapped out them people that we might have known through work. I worked in an advertising agency, so I'd met a few people, and like some of those invested sort of a bit of money, and then we had to do cold calling, and we were willing to give up quite a lot of equity to get that money in. And then our strategy was to scale the business sort of really carefully and slowly, and try to be as profitable as quickly as possible, so that we wouldn't have to go back and get more funding. Now, we sort of, I look at now some of the entrepreneurs that I sort of come across, and they've got a really different view. It's like, as soon as they finish one raise, they're thinking about the next raise. It's all about sort of keeping as much of the equity as they can. There's an upside to that if you nail it, because you can sort of bring funding in a strategic way and sort of retain more ownership in your business. But the downside is you move from selling a dream to actually selling data. People will actually look at your sales and be like, why are you not hitting your rate of sale in Tesco? And you're not making money, so I can sort of see that you're going to run out of money at this point. So if the data's going well, it can work. But if the data goes flat or down, then the rounds can get really expensive, So it's probably a sort of different discussion for different people. I would bootstrap for as long as you can, I think, before raising it, so you've got some at least proof points. And I would also embrace a little bit what I was talking about, that you want like a minimum viable product, get it into market, test it, see if you can learn from it. And then if you manage to sort of convince yourself that it's a good thing through that, then it's a time to really like double down, go out and invest. And I would try and raise as much money as you can to give yourself the longest possible runway to get to a point where you're profitable. I hope that answers your question.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so we're going to open it to the floor. So just a reminder, hands up please, and if you can just have one question so that we can get as many questions in as possible. Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you. So you've obviously had a great deal of success building a company that was in a space that was coded, for female consumers, and building a male product. And now you've admitted, obviously, that you're trying to do almost the reverse, trying to take a masculine medicinal product and make it more feminine. Have you found that that's a transferable skill set?
Not entirely. Like I think we get a head start because in some cases we've got a track record with certain retailers, so we can getting access to the bars is much harder now than it's ever been. Just as a sort of throwaway comment, when I did Bulldog, people were working 5 days a week in the office. You'd always be able to get a meeting once you knew people. Now bars will be doing 2 days a week in the office, 3 days at home. One of those days will be internal. So they've got a day of their week now to take meetings, and they prioritize big brands that they work with. So for my challenge going through retailers, it helps that I sort of know some of the more senior people now, so that's definitely a head start. I think across the business more broadly, there's things that we're familiar with, like sort of how you plug into these retailers, sort of systems, processes, warehouses, how they think about investment, what promotions to do, what promotions not to do. I think in terms of the marketing challenge specifically that you're sort of talking about, like what are the differences between sort of a male shopper or a female shopper, totally at that beginning with Waken where we don't quite know what's working. An interesting thing, I guess, you know, the debate on, or the way we think about gender is changing, but even with Bulldog, it was way more likely to be bought by a female or someone who identified as a female than a male. And that's still because we have quite traditional household structures and roles. Not always, but if you look at 100% of the transactions in Sainsbury's, 75% is to a female. So our launch partner for Bulldog, which is focused on men, 2/3 of the time it was bought by a woman for a man. And that's actually part of the reason we ended up with Bulldog, because we thought it's a masculine idea that he will understand, but it's also something that I think she will understand when she's like shopping on behalf of her father, her partner, her husband, her kids, whatever. I think we are finding with Waken it's definitely more, we're sort of over-indexing on female shoppers versus male shoppers, but we definitely have male shoppers that buy it. And I think men are increasingly looking for beautiful design in their bathrooms too. So, and natural ingredients and sustainability. So I think a lot of the things will still resonate.
Hi, Simon. Firstly, I thought it was really inspiring, everything you said, and I think that inspiration has led me on to a question for you. You've obviously disrupted a market previously, and you mentioned that you want to continue to do that, and I just wanted to know a bit more personally what it took to disrupt a market, like people like Colgate and Listerine, they're huge, and what's it going to take, because from that I can better understand what I might want to do in the future and how I might want to disrupt a market.
Well, I could probably answer that in two ways. I think when we sort of, in terms of, I guess, what my lifestyle was like, and also some of, I guess, the tactics to disrupt, but like Bulldog was just unrelenting. Like, people who think about sort of setting off on an entrepreneurial journey as a sort of nice work-life balance. I mean, I can tell you that I worked for an accountancy firm and an advertising agency and then a consultancy that did innovation. And all of those jobs, I thought I worked hard until I was doing Bulldog, and I was just doing everything from sort of strategy at the top to actually doing the work. And you're just in charge of everything. So it was weekends, it was really late nights. Luckily, my wife was really understanding, and I think it was a kick up the bum for me to get going on this, because we were both living overseas. She's from New Zealand, I'm from the UK. And I thought, I'm going to want to get married soon. I'm going to want to have kids. Like the opportunity that I have to sort of do 90-hour weeks or whatever it would be. I'm going to have more demands on my time, hopefully, if things go the way I'd like them to do later on. So huge commitment to just doing everything. Some of the tactics, I think, with Bulldog were sort of having really distinctive packaging that stood out on the shelf, having a sort of a profile brand that people had seen. Sampling was really important. So we sort of got getting products into people's hands was really important. And we would either do that through things like the London Marathon goodie bags, or in a large part just being on price promotions. Like, a lot of people start off say, I want to build a great brand equity and I don't want to go on deal. But if you're going into a Tesco, people are looking for deals, so you sort of have to play by the games that the retailers have taught consumers to look out for, sort of extra value, extra ideas to switch. As a small brand, you're not going to create a famous... There's some actually people here that have created some amazing brands on TikTok and have got awareness. My view was, we can't afford TV. We can't afford mass awareness. So our ad is going to be our supermarket shelf, and 16 million people will go into a Sainsbury's every week, so potentially can see that product. So we need great packaging that sort of stands out and connects and make them want to interact with it. Dental, it's really, really hard because people are so familiar and comfortable with Colgate, and we haven't worked out how to do it yet, but we know that sampling is really important. And once people have tried the toothpaste or the mouthwash, they'll love it and they're really loyal. but as a sustainable brand, we don't really want to be giving out single-use, portion sizes to people because it's sort of unsustainable. So we haven't worked out quite how to do that, to be honest. But yes, if anybody has any ideas, let me know. But it's sort of I think the challenge with Waken is getting people to try the products, and we haven't quite worked out exactly how to do that yet.
Hi, thanks for coming down. My question's just looking right back at your initial phase of your business. Like, how did you come up with the idea? And then something that I'm facing is like jumping idea to idea, like thinking, oh, this might be better. And additionally, did you have like a team, or was it just yourself in the initial stages?
So the second question, we didn't have a team, but it was me and one other person. Incredibly daunting thing to actually sort of try and break down this huge thing into lots of different sub-challenges. When you go into Sainsbury's for the first time, the manual's about that thick. But the other way to think about that, excuse me, is you walk around a store, there's probably 100,000 different products. So people have worked out how to do it. So we didn't have a team that we employed, but our approach was for every single question we have, there is an expert out there that just focuses on delivery or just focus on regulation. We just have to work out who we should get the right people to do the right things at the right time. And for us at the beginning, it was about sort of networking and collaborating with external people. The story I said about Whole Foods was absolutely true, but in the background, we were also then trying to then test that against other ideas. So we sort of did think about doing different things. But in the end, when we had that sort of initial Bulldog idea, it really became the focus. And then the challenge a bit, I think if you've got an entrepreneurial mindset, you're constantly seeing opportunities in different places, but really focus is your friend. So I think once you decide this is something I want to pursue, say like, I'm just going to focus on this 100% for 2 years and have a sort of decision point in your mind, like, do I double down on this now, or do I think I want to start again and do something else? So really don't try and sort of do too many things at the same time. Like, if you want to build a business, it's so hard to do, but the rewards are great. The experience is so much fun. I would just, to give it the best chance of success, it's really about focus and sort of trying to make a little go a long way.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, really good talk. Lots of interesting points, but I've just got a little one, which is how long did it take to get that first seat at the retailer table? So from like brand inception, how long did it get sort of on the shelves?
How long to get onto shelves? So I think, real quick timeline, we sort of had the idea for the space in November of 2005. Both went our separate ways at Christmas, sort of came back, decided to do it, and then we were both working full time till about, well, I know exactly because I quit my job, and then it was the beginning of the World Cup in Germany, so I sort of spent the first week watching every single football game, which, contrary to my focus point, was just like a great treat after 10 years of working. But so from that point onwards, we were on shelf in about a year, and that was a busy year and an exciting year and a scary year, I guess, because we had to raise money, find a factory, decide on packaging, decide on branding. And when we pitched products to Sainsbury's, they asked us loads of questions on ingredients and stuff, but actually they didn't actually even test the products. So we sort of had these tubes and we sort of filled in products from other products to sort of hand it in, which was a bit naughty. But we were formulating the products in the background with like sort of cosmetic regulations. It takes from signing off your product 3 months of testing to prove that it's safe to manufacture to comply with the European Cosmetics Directive. So that's like sort of introducing bacteria, making sure that it's safe after all this time. What happens if you cook it? What happens if... So it was a real race, actually, to sort of then solve manufacturing and have products in warehouse to deliver to Sainsbury's. So we were sort of... we didn't manufacture the products and then look for a home. We were looking for a home while we were working on the products, and it all sort of, the spinning plates we managed to get it done without any of the plates breaking. Sorry, that's a horrible mixed metaphor, but it was like we worked out when Sainsbury's needed the products in their warehouse to hit the on-shelf date. We had 6 products going into 300 stores, and it pretty much came off the production line into our warehouse for a day and then out the door to the Sainsbury's distribution centres. So it all just sort of came together quite neatly in the end, but it was a bit manic actually for periods. Well, how many units? So we manufactured 120,000 units in our first production runs. And so the sort of thought process on that is there's a lot of sort of cosmetic skincare entrepreneurs who sort of start off with kitchen chemistry, so it's stuff they mix in their kitchens or, with their friends and then sell in the market or sell on their own sort of Shopify websites, and you can deal with these sort of very small volumes. But we were solving straight away for mass distribution. So like the right manufacturing partner for us were able to do that. And actually the minimum production runs they wanted to do were, say, 20,000 units per. You've got these massive vessels that mix the products and like sort of 10 people on the line, and they were the right partner for us, but wouldn't necessarily be the right partner for every sort of skincare launch. There's plenty of contract manufacturers in the UK that will do sort of 500 unit runs, but inherently those products are going to be about 5 times more expensive. So, there's pros and cons.
Amazing. Hi, Si.
Hello.
Well, firstly, I use Bulldog every single day, so
thank you.
Totally
Look
understand. Good. Thank you, man. But also, I've got an idea for Waken, so I'll speak to you about that after. But my main question was recently I was involved in kind of like a business opportunity to work on a skin product, but we got into a conflict about trademarking, and I wanted to get from your perspective, how important was it to get the right trademark for Bulldog and the Waken?
Really important. Really, really important. For a few reasons. If you're trading in some countries without a trademark, you're trading illegally. That's a point. You're building a brand, and part and parcel of that is people are going to remember the brand. And if you don't have your intellectual property sorted out, someone else sort of 4 or 5 years later can get that intellectual property, and it can sort of pull the foundations away from you. And another point about your intellectual property is if, like in the Bulldog journey, at some point you can imagine selling the business to somebody else, it's almost the first thing that they will look at is, do you have all of your intellectual property in place? That said, you don't need to do everything at once. Back to what I was saying, at sort of certain things, it's sort of like you can start and you can build. So we started off with an idea of all the intellectual property wanted, it sort of all the different classes, all the different markets. We had to be careful with the resource that we started with, so we sort of invested a certain amount straight away, because we needed to feel sure that if we're going to go with Bulldog, we can own it. But then I think after year 2, year 5, year 7, we sort of went deeper and wider. And we came up with some sort of challenges, like we were sued by Red Bull in South Africa, because they said Bulldog was too close to Red Bull. We had issues in America with the American university who sort of would have the Bulldogs on the side of the American football helmet. So there were some sort of challenges there. In Holland, in Amsterdam, there's like a massive marijuana smoking cafe that's called the Bulldog, and it's sort of internationally famous. So we sort of had a bit of a arm wrestle to try and get the intellectual property for Holland with them, and then ultimately we got it. So it's definitely an area to sort of get some help, and we work with a really good lawyer who's also really cheap. He sort of charged us 10% on top of the cost of the filings that we made, and he helped us out in all those situations.
I think we've got time for one more question, but if there's anything that you didn't get to ask today, just pop the Student Enterprise team an email, and I'm sure Simon won't mind if we ask him afterwards. I think that was over here, the last one.
My question is, why the name Bulldog and Waken? And for the idea of testing the product and getting real feedbacks, I believe everyone in this room got that product. There's a restroom down there. You can actually get live feedback right here for the product.
The answer to the first question, why the name Bulldog and why the name Waken, I just found it so hard to come up with the brand name. So we had like stupid names to start with. The idea with Bulldog was man's best friend, and we were looking for something obviously masculine but also something that wasn't sort of going to put off that important female shopper. Waken was sort of about awaking to the world, and there was this whole story we had about mint to start with, which we sort of downplayed a bit now, but it was just an idea of trying to create a really pleasurable ritual and associating this with the sort of start of your day, which is in the end how we got to Waken, but it was a torturous process. And again, it sort of came down to also finding a name for a brand that we could get the intellectual property for. So we had other ideas that fell away. For the second question, I don't think I totally heard that, actually. Did you hear that? Could you?
I think he was suggesting that everyone go and try it in the bathroom and tell you how it is.
Well, no, I'd actually really love that, because I think with the peach and mint mouthwash, it hasn't been a good seller, but people, when they've tasted it blind, have told us it's the best flavour. So everybody gets one, and if there is any ideas about what we're doing wrong, and you can sort of be bothered to tell me, I would love to hear ideas to improve it. And that could be the liquid or the way it's packaged. Or you could just tell me it's a disgusting flavour and we should kill it, which is also quite helpful advice, actually. But yeah, everyone gets one.
It is fantastic. That's my second royalty of the day, but it is fantastic. But thank you very much, Sam. It's been really insightful. So thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for Simon? Thank you very much.